Are perfect 3D prints possible? And more specifically, do they actually matter? Jacob, I think that this week's been interesting. We've both kind of gone through some pain points when it comes to 3D printer calibration and trying to obtain what we would consider perfect prints. And I think that we both went down the same path of, at the end of the day, F it, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, dude, the idea of perfect prints. So many companies are selling 3D printers basically saying, oh, look at the print quality, look at the print quality, look at the print quality. But does print quality translate to accuracy?
It's hard to say because every time you go, companies are doing a thing. It highly depends on which company that person immediately thinks of. So like, for example, the new SV08 Max just came out and Aurora Tech did a great video showing the print quality of it. And it was actually quite good. But when they compared it against different machines, the print quality is vastly different across all of them. Like they're not one-to-one to each of them, but they all advertise the same spec, give or take a bit. Like they're all in the same ballpark for speed, all in the same ballpark for materials they can melt, but the overall output is so varied. I kind of feel like advertising now is just so disingenuous.
You know, often companies are pushing how the parts look in photos, but they're not giving you measurements. And Jacob could answer, if you are selling a printer, wouldn't you want to highlight the print quality? And I feel like the answer is obviously yes, right? You're not going to want to say, oh,
Ah,
yeah, it makes subpar prints. But
I feel like a contrarian. I think the answer is no, don't highlight it at all.
I would highlight accuracy over quality, because if you're spending Construct 3D money,
You
there
expect it to work.
yeah, there's like a certain expectation. Now, I would still show the quality of a print, but I might also have like a pair of Mitutoyos on that part showing that it's, let's say it's a calibration cube, that it's 20 on the money. And yes, there are plenty of ways to fake that image, right? It's a easily photoshoppable image, and
Uh,
your day is done. But you're right with this Benchy, where the faster you go, often the crappier the overall resolution of the part is. And it's been something that's come up recently. We're doing these big pieces for a client right now, and we're having them fit together with mortise and tenons, right? Although it's a pin and mortise. I think the mortise is the female side of it. Whatever. Pins and holes for pins, right? Printing the pins fast and the holes fast mean I have to have a larger tolerance for them to fit together. If we do on a slower machine, I can run like 50 micron tolerance, and that's a nice push fit tolerance. On these faster input shaper machines, we have to run like a 1/4 millimeter tolerance for them to be a slip fit. And it's like, well, something's different here, right? And
uh.
pressure advance and things like that are kind of designed to fix it, but I feel like this is more of a Band-Aid than it is anything else. Would you agree with that it's more of a Band-Aid than an actual, like, solution to the problem?
I think pressure advance keeps getting a bad rap because it was never designed for speed. It was
Right.
designed to take your current exact speed settings and then work out the flow rate calibration for that part.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas what a lot of companies now do is they put input shaper on and pressure advance. And the issue is input shaper affects pressure advance,
A lot.
whereas pressure advance doesn't affect the input shaper. It's a one-way relationship. And the more aggressive your input shaper becomes, the less requirement for pressure advance you need, because the whole point of pressure advance is if you're slowing down for a corner and then you're taking off again, it will dynamically lower the flow rate and then increase it in advance so it's in the correct area where you need. Input shaper, however, the entire goal of input shaper is to stop the printer slowing down
Right.
as much, which means you're doing less pressure advance or less requirement for a pressure advance. And you add both of them together and you can just end up in this situation where the part looks visually incredibly nice, but the corner quality and the tolerancing of the part is just non-existent.
Right.
Whereas, so for an example, before Input Shaper was quite big, we had a very rudimentary version of Input Shaper in our prototype machinery before it got updated to the new version, which is what's on our current ones now. We turned off pressure advance every time we'd print a benchy because the over extrusion at the corners made the corners look slightly sharper. And then that visually looked a lot better. But from a tolerance point of view, it was worse. And now we're kind of seeing the opposite where you get a Clipper style machine. Now, Clipper is notorious for having this issue because they have two values for Input Shaper. They have an X and a Y value. And if you've ever looked at how Cartesian coordinate math works, you can't do Input Shaper on more than one axis at once. Because if you've got an X component and a Y component and the Y is different to the X, well, you physically can't resolve that math. It's impossible to figure out. So the way that they got around it was smooth the corner. Do the closest math possible. Don't do the math, just estimate the math. And that's why when you get faster and more aggressive, Input Shapers tend to be, well, they're kind of like Vaseline. They make your parts look better, but they also make them less precise. But that's not even the word, because technically it is precise. It's really hard to say.
It is a precision thing, right? Because you're dealing with like worse on your corners and, you know,
no, that's it. It's less accurate, not precise.
accuracy.
So it's more precise,
Okay.
but less accurate.
Okay.
Accuracy is the ability to hit a target in the middle, whereas precision is how close to the middle you are. So if you're missing all the time, but it's a really nice, like spread of shot
Yeah, I was gonna say
holes, you are very precise, not very accurate.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna
the
say
other way around is if it's very wide.
Right. Right. I'm like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this is like the perfect terminology to start using, like firearm terminology, where you have your grouping. You know,
Yeah.
and are you hitting that bullseye and you're just, you know, same hole over and over again, or are you like up at the 20-point mark, but you're still punching the same hole, right?
Yeah.
Your precision is there, but your accuracy is not. Because a VFA, or a very fine artifact, does impact surface quality.
Oh, do you use the word very fine artifact? I've always done it as vertical fine artifacting because they're lines.
They are, but they're not always vertical.
Ah,
I've
I've never
always
heard
said
it as
very
very
fine
fine
artifact.
artifact. I've always heard of it as vertical.
It could be vertical fine artifact. I've always said very fine artifact.
Put a
What's your
poll up. I
preference
want to
is?
try the poll features more and see how it affects the analytics.
Okay. Yeah, sure. We can pull this.
Yeah, let's put a poll up. But this brings me on to a really
Artifact.
interesting topic, which is you've worked with Stratasys filament machines before, haven't you?
Unfortunately.
They have some of the worst surface quality, in my opinion. It's okay, I can say I'm blacklisted by them. They have the worst surface quality on any industrial machine I have seen in a hot minute. However, their tolerancing on their accuracy is some of the best. They have traded all of visual clarity and all of the smoothness of what you expect from
For
a
like
modern 3D printer.
dead nuts accuracy.
Yeah. Like you can guarantee when they say this is tolerance to this part, it is tolerance to that part. Does that mean that each layer on top of each other is perfectly aligned? No, they never said that. But what they can tell you is it is a 50 micron tolerance between walls, and it will never exceed that. It looks awful because the human eye hates non-uniformity. They like smooth surface where they can mentally block it out. But that doesn't mean it's accurate. And
Correct.
Stratasys goes with the full accuracy route. And it's one of the things that makes it really interesting to tackle as a tuning side, like try and get your slicer settings done right, is where on that slider between accuracy and precision do you want to go? Do you want to be really precise, but the end part might not be the exact size they wanted, but it looks better? Or do you want it to be perfect, but look like ass? And there's a slider. And we have to choose where it sits.
So it looks like a lot of people are saying visual, and we're both wrong.
Oh.
What I should have done is added an other, but vertical fine artifact is winning, and apparently Google says vertical, so I'm just wrong. Fine. I'm gonna go with visual fine artifacts just to be different, because you know what? That actually makes sense. Visual fine artifacts happen to make more sense. Of all of that. So I don't mind using visual fine. I've just always used very fine artifacts. So like I could be, I don't know, y'all say vertical fine artifact, but I find that they're not always vertical. I find them that they're often kind of at a bit of a side, right? You know?
Yeah.
and not so much damn vertical. But it's part of the reason you pay Stratasys money for a Stratasys machine. You pay it for the guarantee, right? Regardless of how the part looks, you pay it to be able to say, this part is this quality, guaranteed every single time. Right. And that's something you just don't get with consumer grade printers. That's fair.
They don't.
So I'm gonna end the poll here. 56 votes, vertical fine artifact, 66%. So there you go. Pretty obvious on that one of what the community thinks. It's funny too because you could actually force VFAs out of most printers. Like, oh yeah, just run it cold enough, or not cold enough, sorry, slow enough and cold enough, really. And pretty much every machine is going to give you some level of VFA. And that's normally related to like gear teeth and
Like
belt
motor
teeth,
resonance and
motor
stuff.
resonance. Yeah, it's
Magnetic backlash.
yeah.
Felix in the chat.
There's
Yes, that's the big one.
there's tons and tons and tons of different things that can result in VFA. Personally, we think the VFA in the Core 1 is related to the MGN12 ball bearing system that they're using.
Well, this is also why Bamboo Lab, for their P and their X series, went with bushings instead of your standard like ball bearing recirculating bearings.
It's just easier.
Is it skips the problem in the first place.
It's just
yes,
easier.
it makes maintenance massively harder.
Well,
but when you're making a
impossible.
machine that is only designed to maybe last for 2 years instead of 10 years, bushings are a very smart decision. There is a reason big industry, and I'm talking multi-ton machinery industry, they go with IGUS bushings, where they don't have to worry about ball bearing recirculation affecting what they do.
But sir,
They just go
IGUS
straight
calls
to a
them
bushing.
no, IGUS calls them dry bearings.
Yes, they've got their Dryland bearings, their proprietary material, which
It's not a bearing, it's a
tastes really
bushing.
nice.
It's not a bearing, it's a bushing. And I don't care. It's a bushing by definition. IGUS. I love you all. You make cool products. I use it. It's awesome. But it's not a damn bearing.
I actually have a prototype machine made entirely out of IGUS's stuff, and it's really good.
My TAS 6.
There's only one downside. I need more motor power. Because there's slightly more friction if you want to keep the same tolerances.
Or its backlash is kind of high. I look at what's occurring in the market, and I'm seeing a lot of companies dealing with all of these like issues with VFAs and things like that by just washing it clean, right? Using input shaping to wash it clean. And
it's quite aggressive input shaper we're seeing nowadays, where surface quality is what they are obviously going for.
Yes.
At the cost of everything else. And it implies that this is what the consumers aren't necessarily educated about, is this slider between tolerancing and quality. Because you can see, oh god, what printer was it? It came out recently where the benchy looked like ass, like actually really bad. There was no sharp edges at all. It was just take a spackle and just blend every edge. That's what they did. It was smooth as my brain. It was not sharp in any way. It was just smooth all over. And that was acceptable to most people. They saw it and they're like, wow, it printed a benchy in 12 minutes. I'm like, but do you want that benchy? Like at the end of the day, you've got a piece of plastic in the shape of a benchy, but is that really good enough?
And so I would argue for the vast majority of current 3D printing users, yes, it is. So
that winds me up.
I know it does. When a product becomes a commodity, right? As we're getting toward this 3D printing becoming a household thing, where you can get a reasonably reliable machine. It might have some dodgy safety features, but whatever, it's cheap. In your home for like sub $500, it is becoming a commodity. And if the world around us has taught us anything, it's what's on the outside that matters, not what's on the inside. And if you can make the outside look pretty, then we don't really care about the accuracy, because a lot of people are doing things that don't require heavy amounts of accuracy. Yes, there are still the OGs in the industry, people that have been in the industry for more than a few years, that are pushing for really, really high accuracy. And don't get me wrong, there are new people entering the industry that are pushing for high accuracy and, parts that are dead on for a 20 millimeter cubed, 20, right? But if the talk of Etsy last week has been any obvious thing here. The top things on Etsy are not high accuracy prints, they're pretty prints. And pretty is what sells, right? Accuracy is what sells to businesses, and precision is what sells to businesses. Everything else, pretty, that's what sells to consumers. It's why the Centauri Carbon is as popular as it is. It's why Elegoo continues to make modifications to it, because they need, one, to keep up with the competition, but two, they need to make it pretty. And that's where I firmly believe, beyond how user-friendly it is, that's where I believe Bamboo changed more about the industry than anybody else. They built a machine that actually looks pretty, where a lot of companies were form follows function, not so
Mm.
much function follows form or some middle ground.
Our company ethos was just not another black box, where every printer was black aluminium in a box with no side panels, and everything's on show, and they all look identical to each other. And that was the bread and butter, was like, you couldn't tell the difference between a Creality and I literally can't think of any other name, because Creality dominated so much of that ecosystem back then. Like a Taz, like they all looked really similar. They were just black metal extrusions with boxes strapped to them. And if you showed this to a regular layperson, they wouldn't know which brand was which. Like there was no aesthetic. I lied. There is an aesthetic flair to some of them. Some of them had blue accents or
Ooh.
yellow accents. And that was the only thing you could determine was which Creality clone did you get? Well, I got the one with the yellow accent that performs 5%
Well,
better versus the blue accent, which is 2% cheaper.
The Ender 3 KE versus SE. Looking at them, they are
They're the
functional.
same.
They look the same. One has Clipper, the other one doesn't. And so one of them, it can run way faster than the other, right? It does make things challenging. Luke
Yeah.
is chiming in with a hot take here, saying, I hate some of my customers, in quotes, we want 0.08 millimeter layer heights. Why? It's an effing block of plastic you said you are going to sand and finish. There's some side of me that agrees with the customer.
Oh,
Then there's some
I
side of me
actually
that
was just
agrees
going to
with
say I
Luke.
kind of agree with the customer.
So
Is for sanding and finishing in particular, the better the surface quality, the easier it is.
yes, that is fair. But how much extra effort is it instead before you sand it to hit it with a little bit of sandable filler primer that will take care of any of the higher layer lines, right? So we have a few customers that get very generic parts. I'm gonna go with generic parts. From us that do a lot of sanding and finishing on them. And the funny thing that they've requested, they haven't requested anything about layer heights or anything. They said, we just don't want you to use green, red, or yellow. Use a gray, a white, or a black, because it's so much easier for us to cover the print color than it is for anything else. And they've actually done an interesting thing. They use a gel coat. They use like a spray-on gel coat like you would use on a boat.
Oh,
And
that's quite interesting.
yeah, because it self-levels.
How interesting.
Yeah, there's a little like free tip of the day. If you have access to an actual paint booth and access to like industrial grade spraying equipment, gel coat all the things, and
Mm.
it's just absolutely beautiful.